Today on the Meaningful Content Mixer, we talk to Liz Fraley and Janice Summers. They are experts in structured authoring and creators of Room 42, a virtual series for academics and practitioners to connect.
Liz and Janice share with us about how their latest project creates space for academics and practitioners to gain insights from each other, and why getting out of your comfort zone leads to more meaningful content. You're listening to the Meaningful Content Mixer. I'm Bonnie, a content professional focused on pre-sales and product marketing.
And I'm Sarah, a content professional focused on post-sale knowledge management. Together, we like to explore what it takes to create meaningful content that is purposeful, demand-driven, and contextually relevant.
We are sharing strategies, tactics, and stories that help content professionals across disciplines create more meaningful content that drives successful outcomes for their customers.
Let's get started.
Wonderful. Janice and Liz, it's so wonderful to have you join the Meaningful Content Mixer today.
Welcome.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us, yeah.
Yeah, for starters, I'd love to hear a little bit about what's your experience as a content professional? How do you see yourself as a content professional, each of you?
I feel that our responsibility as content creators is to be worthy of the time we ask for from anyone, right? We ask people for a certain amount of time, and it is our job to captivate them for however long we have asked for their attention.
And to provide the guidance that they're seeking in the most expedient way.
I love that. Excellent.
You both are very experienced in your fields, and I'm curious to know more about, what are some big projects that you're working on now?
We do have an area of expertise within a particular tool set known as Arbortext. So we've done design work for people in that, but I think the thing we like to do the most is teaching and training. So we've done some recent training projects with that tool set. We've also been doing some recent training projects in structured authoring. We did another recent project on teaching people DITA, the architecture. We've done another project where we were teaching minimalism, how to author in the minimalist style. Another project where we're teaching people how to author in the topic style without implementing the DITA, the full technical, robust DITA suite, but actually taking some of those best practices and principles and applying them. So it's kind of like it's topics without borders. And actually we're presenting on that soon. But
Interesting.
yeah, so that's a few of the recent projects. And we've also done a lot of defense work.
Yeah.
So I think that's enough.
That
and then our community stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I've been really intrigued by a recent initiative that you launched called Room 42, and as an observer, and I've participated in a couple, that you're seeking to bridge a gap between academia and industry, and it's called Room 42, and I'd love to hear more about sort of where this came from and what you're seeking to do by identifying and filling this gap.
Right.
Should I go first?
Take that one?
Yeah, you go first.
So here's what happened.
Tell us everything.
Let me give you the inside story. So here's what happened. So if you know Liz at all, and you've known her for any amount of time, she has this habit. And I've known her for a long time. She does this both in her social life and in her professional life. She likes to make worlds collide. If you've ever watched Seinfeld, you know that line. But she likes to connect things, and she's really interested in people. And she's interested in what people are doing, specifically. So she and I were having these conversations, and really interesting conversations. I'm like, we really should get this out there. And, of course, she dragged her feet a little bit. And then we continue to have these conversations. I'm like, that's it. We need to have a place where we can showcase some of this and have discussions, not PowerPoint presentations, but discussion about this work, about these topics, and just pick one thing and talk about it really well, discuss it in length. And that was the first kernel of Room 42, because we wanted to have an informal setting and we wanted to have a discussion. We wanted participation from the community, because in doing TC Dojo and TC Camp, which we also had launched, the theme for us really is in community participation. And even when we do consulting services, our emphasis is in strengthening the community. So when we're consulting to a company, we're interested in strengthening them as a team and as end users or as creators of content. So the same thing is in Room 42. Now, it makes sense because Liz knows a lot of people in academia, and Liz reads
far too much.
A lot. Like one year, I think you read like 300 books one year.
Yeah, that was crazy.
Ridiculous.
I don't remember a lot of them.
I don't know how many
Oddly.
news feeds she's tapped into.
Yeah.
So she's a huge consumer of information and content and really interested in people. So one of the things is she's got a lot of reach into academia. And she would talk to me about these projects that people are working on. So when we were going forward with Room 42, it just felt, the pieces kind of clicked in. Is Liz's connections through the world and her interest and passion with academia and the research work and wanting to build stronger communities as far as practitioners, it just was the perfect storm. And boom, we just started lining up guests to come in.
This is why Janice is the one who will talk like that. For me, I never, it's not that interesting. I never find myself that interesting. But, you know, for me, I come from a variety of weird disciplines. I'm a computer scientist in my background. I also have a master's in literature. And so I'm a part of a group where everyone there is from a different level in the corporate hierarchy, all the way up and down, at a variety of companies across a variety of industries. And we all discuss, we bring to the table what we know well, right? And we work as a group. When somebody has a question, we go to this group and we all are there to lend our expertise. And I find myself frequently having discussions with a variety of people, and where that discussion will then spark an idea for another conversation later on. And I wouldn't have that if I weren't just kind of wanting to talk to people. When we started, oh God, 15 years ago, we did a presentation where we went and we talked to all the old customers just to see, like, why did you do it? And was it worth it? That's 15 years later, was it worth it? And some were gone. It's the nature of business. Some are gone, some are there. All of them said it was worth it, but it was more interesting to hear their stories, who they are, why they did it, what their impetus was. Because it in almost some cases, it almost doesn't matter. In one case, her ROI was built on printer sheets coming out of a printer to do structured authoring, right? It seems an odd thing to do your ROI on, but it worked and it was meaningful for them. But I wouldn't even think to go that way without having had that conversation. So, and it's not, I love talking to the academics because they're the ones who they have the luxury to dig into something that they see as being meaningful or going to have meaning somewhere along the way. And they have the luxury to dig in and spend real time with it, where the rest of us don't.
Right. I mean, they can do longitudinal studies, like over time, because I mean, really, that's the best thing, to look at something over time. Like Liz was saying, 15 years later, what happened? Right? So they can take and do research over a longer period of time, a bigger sampling of a population, because that's what they do in academia.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They can talk to 5,000 people in 50 countries to get data, not just survey their friends on LinkedIn, right? And they can gather real data that is meaningful for the rest of us to adapt and use in our own work.
Right. Also, the nice thing is being able, because I think one of the frustrations is, well, how do I apply this, right? So academia is doing this research, and we just had this conversation just recently on Room 42, and they did this research with students, and she walked through everything, and then I said, okay, so let's take a look at this and say what a practitioner could take from this, right? Because you have to learn to look at the information that was gleaned from it and extract that to apply it to a commercial setting, because people are people. So in this case, they were studying students, which happened to be young people, but they're people, right? So they're customers of a particular thing. So we actually walked it back and then said, okay, let's apply this in a commercial vernacular so that they can translate this information into their everyday, right? Because sometimes I don't know if people really take that leap. So I think it's important, that bridge that we're creating and that conversation that we're creating is how they can take advantage of this research that's going on, that's fresh, that's new. That one happened to be about adding, like Liz was saying, she's in a group that has a lot of different types of professions, right? A lot of different types of people, which adds a richness to the fiber. And the same thing was happening with these science, it happened to be with math. And they added people in that were poets and artists and people who taught Spanish language, right? Talk about a romantic language. And taught and applied practices and principles of methodology to teach math, like advanced math, like critical.
Make it or break it, I'm going to be a math major class.
Yeah. And the advantages of that. So if you listen to this from a practitioner's perspective and you're trying to convey scientific information to a lay person,
technical,
understanding the arts and humanities of the person that you're communicating to, and integrate that into the language that you use, right? Then you can benefit from that research that was just done.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. I think one of the challenges that some people have when writing is, especially when it's technical content, is breaking away from trying to sound smart, because it's such a smart topic, and then simplifying it. It almost feels wrong to make create take something so complex and make it so simple, but that's really what you need to do in order to get across a larger audience.
Yes.
That is a great point. You got to dumb it down, right? I mean, and really think about it. Some of the best teachers that I ever had in university would be able to take something that was an advanced concept and make it so simple and easy to digest that before you knew it, it was like, oh, okay, I totally understand the theories now.
Yeah.
I mean, I had stats more than once, and it wasn't until I had a professor who taught waltzing and ballroom dancing and applied it to statistics that it finally sunk in, right? So he took a math concept and applied arts to it.
Right.
And dubbed it down.
And that's one of the things, it's funny because, that's one of the inspirations for Sarah and I doing this podcast is really seeing what we can pull from other areas that aren't related. And when you think about art and math and music, these are things that are very different fields, but they actually really complement each other, especially from a learning perspective.
Yeah, they do. Absolutely.
They do. Yeah.
Interesting. Do you have any recommendations for practitioners or for how to go about getting more insights from academia, how to find out the sources of information and then figure out how to apply them?
Come to Room 42.
Come to Room 42.
Yeah, come to Room 42. We do include a lot of resources after, and all of the people in academia, all the professors provide links and information, and some are actually even opening up the channel to say, hey, I'm looking for volunteers if you want to participate.
Oh, interesting.
Right, in some research that's getting started. So it's a good way for practitioners to get involved in the academic research from the ground up.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Also, there's lots of professors looking for real life student projects.
Yes.
Right? So you want to have someone do UX testing on your thing, or want to do rewriting, or find out how minimal your stuff is. There's a professor out there who has students who need to learn how to do that.
Yeah.
Right? We may not have that money as a corporate to spend time and effort doing that, but students do.
Right. And we have heard that, I think, from almost everyone
Everyone.
we've talked to so far.
Yeah.
It's like, hey,
Yeah.
I've got students that need some practical experience working on something that's real time, because for them, something that's real is more tangible.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's a better learning tool.
Yeah. Well, and if you want experience, you have with academia and being able to apply it, you gotta dig through it too. Sometimes it can help to be a reviewer for a journal. It gives you a sense of what research is happening and then how to evaluate it for its value. Right? Sort of like, should they do more research? Is this valid? Not just from a subject matter perspective, but through the whole thing, right? And I spent a couple of years doing that for TechCom the journal for STC, and it was fun to read those proposed articles. At the same time, I'm reading Communications from the ACM, a journal for computer science. And you can compare and say, hey, maybe this needs to go a little farther.
That advice. Okay, so what I'm hearing you say, I think one of my assumptions was that maybe practitioners just need to know where to look to go find this insight from academia. But what I'm hearing you say is that it's not that simple or easy, and maybe that's a good thing, that really the way to get these insights is to get involved, establish relationships and connections with academia, participate in conversations like you all are facilitating in Room 42, get involved with how you can help with research projects, or volunteer with academic journals and things like that. It's a little bit more involved than just knowing the secret website to go to get all the
Yeah. There's no secret.
No.
It's all out there if you want it,
Yeah.
and learn from other places. Like, you have to be willing to learn. You have to be a learner.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Can I ask, Room 42, is there an origin story for the name of Room 42?
Of course.
Show the mice. Scoot
Of
over
course.
to the mice show.
Little clues are everywhere.
Yeah.
Room 42 is the answer to everything in the universe, right? 42?
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's the answer to everything.
Yeah,
Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy?
gotcha.
Went over my head.
Didn't quite get it. That's
It's great. It's kitschy. It's a lot of fun.
We have a lot of fun with it. We do come up with the whole like layout and graphics and all of that stuff for sure. That's part of the thinking of it,
mm-hmm.
right? Because that's part of design, right? It really is part of design. And there's all kinds of things built into there. Everything we do has little Easter eggs buried into it. The Monster Garage had it. TC Dojo has it. Room 42 has it. The tarot cards, which is what Janet's picture on the back of her picture is, right?
Yeah.
Everything we do has extra things in there for those who want to find them.
Little fun Easter eggs and little
Rewards for the people who are seeking.
Yeah. Little
I love
hidden,
that.
little
Gotta
hidden
have that.
messages.
A little bit of fun.
It's just a fun, kitschy kind of movie. But he does go on a journey, and he has to get out of his comfort zone. So there's a lot of reasons, like we have to get out of our comfort zone.
Mm-hmm.
Goes on a quest to understand right?
I really appreciate that sentiment or that encouragement in general of going out of your comfort zone for learning. I think that's so important. And as a practitioner, I know Bonnie and I have sought that out at times, going beyond our comfort zone to try new things or seek new perspectives, and kind of the whole idea of stretching yourself professionally. I think that's so important.
Yeah.
So you've been doing Room 42 for a few months now. Do you have any plans or ideas of where it's going to go? 2 months? Literally.
It's only been a couple months.
Literally 2. We started in July.
Feels like longer. Well, we did a lot in the planning stage earlier on.
Yeah,
so
we do.
there's a lot of discussions before we launched it.
Of course,
Right.
of course. So where should people stay tuned if they want to see what you all are up to next?
It's just room42.single-sourcing.com.
All
Yeah.
right.
That is the main landing page, and it will always work.
And it has a link where you can sign up to stay informed, right?
Yep.
To get the notices. And that's the best way.
Okay. You know, when you were talking earlier, one of the things that you were saying is that you just get inspired from having conversations with people. And I feel like this is a trend that we're seeing, at least Sarah and I, with the last few podcasts that we've had. It's really about the conversations that you're having with people and having that open mind and continuing to learn, which I think is really important, especially if you want to be, if you want to work with content. It doesn't all just come from you. It comes from collaboration. It comes from conversations, research. Do you feel like that's, something that you're seeing as well, or that you feel, that's important in content creation?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think people crave that.
Yeah.
Those conversations. I mean, years ago, TC Camp was started because Liz and I were out swimming one day.
Right, we were.
And Liz
And I was like, hey, you think this will work?
Right? Right.
She's like, those people will never do that.
Right. But they did.
And they did.
Give up a Saturday. I mean, all right. So honestly, I said nobody wants to give up a Saturday. So we started TC Camp. I said nobody would give up a Saturday, but you have to understand, I come from an engineering background, and engineering, we wouldn't have given up a Saturday to go to a conference. I think the people in the world of technical communications are unique and extremely committed. So so that's how we started TC Camp, is because of the conversations that are had in between sessions at a conference.
Right, that hallway stuff, right? Where you're wrapping your mind around it.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
So,
I don't think it's new. Quite frankly, I think it's the oldest method we know. I mean, you could actually call it the Socratic method if you wanted to, right? It's about discussion and argumentation and dialogue to stimulate critical thinking, right? This is not in any way new, right? But not everyone does it. And certainly we are weird in the world of consultants because we do this, have always done this with our customers. Right? We don't just say, here's what it is, throw it over the fence, have a nice day. It's like, let's work this out until both of us can verbalize it. Then we know.
Right.
And we can take action.
Right.
Yeah. And that's reflected in what you said in the beginning, which was that you really enjoy teaching as well. And so you're not just, telling people what to do, but teaching them how and why and what goes into that thought process. So
and to dig out those assumptions, those underlying presuppositions, right? That blind you from taking an action because you don't even realize you're making that assumption.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Liz is really good at asking needly little
I'm
questions.
really good at that.
I would just gloss over, and Liz would be like, but
what about this?
All these little tiny bits, and I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah. And it's not always comfortable. We had a set of customers, we sent them squeeze balls so they could go, Liz! Right? But they've become our biggest fans and they are our biggest stars.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not always comfortable, but getting out of your comfort zone is part of what we're talking about here, right?
Right. You can't go on a journey if you just stay at home. You have to leave the house.
You have to leave the house.
At least virtually these days.
Right? But it's that same type of thing. You have to ask the questions. You have to listen. You have to set aside your assumptions.
You have to go there. They will not come to you.
I love that you're saying that, and you just made me think about how much of our lives are spent on social media platforms, and the nature of algorithms are that they try to show you things that they think they know you want to see, and that
you will stay.
You can have a lot of confirmation bias, or you can continue to see sort of regurgitation of the same ideas. And so how it's so important to go find sources outside of something that is controlled by an algorithm designed to give you what you want.
Yeah. Well, it's not just designed to give you what you want, it's designed to keep you there.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
right.
But they do try to spoon feed you things that they think you like. And I'm unpredictable because I have like my interests cover a wide spectrum.
You know you're doing good when your ads start to be something completely inappropriate. You're like, I didn't know I was interested in that. All right.
Yeah, I finally figured out how to turn off algorithms on one particular channel, and I turned it off, and I'm like, oh, that's interesting. So all these new interesting things started showing up, and I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Because it's true. Otherwise, you're only getting spoon-fed the same stuff over and over and over again. And there's nothing fresh and exciting and new.
How can you grow?
Nothing to stretch you.
Yeah. Well, you've inspired me. I'm going to go start having conversations with random people.
You should. I do.
I do too. When we were traveling, she
the good old days.
We got all kinds of things. We learned all kinds of things. We got all kinds of new information. And it was all due to her just talking to people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm a little Gabby.
Well, in this case, that's a good thing.
Absolutely. Before we get close to wrapping up, is there anything else either of you ladies want to share about what you're working on or what you think the wider content professional community should consider more?
I think everyone should always consider getting involved. Contribute.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's important. And I think you should digest and consume content that's not necessarily what's in your realm.
So the foundation of my career is in technical writing, of course, but I did find myself in the last couple years consuming a lot more content marketing content and thought leadership. And I just was noticing that there was a lot of technique and strategy from content marketing, those concepts that could be applied to technical writing. And I used to sort of think content marketing and technical writing were almost opposite ends of a spectrum, right? They counterbalance each other. And I realized that's not true at all. It's just different approaches. And in fact, approaches that should be more shared for the same goals or outcomes. Yeah. And I realized I just gave quite a safe example of going outside of your realm. I'm still giving an example that's still within certain content professions, and that it's a matter of taking that same idea but going further beyond the scope of what you think is relevant. Perfect. To wrap up, here at Meaningful Content, we like to seek inspiration in unexpected places. So I'm curious from each of you, where do you find your inspiration?
I find it in nature. I find a lot of inspiration in nature. But I draw conclusions a lot outside of the typical realm. So for me, I guess nature is the biggest inspiration, and people. I'm fascinated with people.
I'm curious. I don't know what else to say. I like to know why. I like to try things out and see what happens. I am an experimenter at heart. I am. I like to read a lot of things because I never know where that idea is going to come from. I like to talk to people because that's how I figure things out. But I get inspiration all over the place. There's no single thing.
Well, I have to say, you have both inspired me with this conversation today. I'm going to go do some research and talk to some strangers. But seriously, I've really enjoyed this conversation. So thank you so much for joining us and sharing
Thanks
this
for
with us.
having us. It's
It
been
was
a
fun.
pleasure
Thank
to
you.
talk with you.
Yeah. You guys are great fun.
Yes, you are.
You make us think. That's good. Always good.
Wonderful. Okay, thank you. Till next time.
See you in room 42.
See you there.
Mice with the, we made a little mouse hole.